She waited at the station, but he never came. Years later, fate brought them face to face again. The story. The sky above the small village was painted in soft shades of orange as the sun sank slowly into the horizon. The evening breeze carried the smell of dust, firewood, and jasmine flowers from the neighbor's courtyard. Children were still running in the narrow lanes, chasing each other with laughter that echoed against mud walls. But inside one modest house at the corner of the street, silence was heavier than the air. That house belonged to Rashid, a middle-aged man with rough hands and a tired back. His clothes always smelled faintly of engine oil and grease, because for the last 20 years, Rashid had been repairing bicycles and motorbikes in a tiny roadside workshop. Life had been hard on him. His wife had passed away when their only child, Ayan, was just 5 years old. From that day, Rashid had been both father and mother to the boy. Rashid's love for Ayan was endless, but life had made him simple. He never learned how to wear polished shoes or ironed clothes. His hands were always cracked, his shirts faded. He couldn't speak fancy English or hold his head high in elite gatherings. Yet, every coin he earned, every drop of sweat he shed, was for his son. Scene 1. The schoolyard shame. Ayan grew fast. By the time he entered middle school, he was intelligent, curious, and bright, but also sensitive. He began to notice the difference between himself and his classmates. Many of his friends had fathers who wore neat clothes, drove cars, and spoke in polished accents. His father, meanwhile, came to pick him up on an old bicycle, his fingernails blackened with grease, his shirt stained from the workshop. One afternoon, when Ayan was in 7th grade, Rashid arrived at school earlier than usual. He leaned his bicycle against the gate and waited outside, his rough face glowing with excitement just to see his son. But when Ayan stepped out and spotted him, his smile faded instantly. Behind him, a group of classmates whispered and giggled. "Is that your father?" One boy smirked. "Looks like a mechanic," another laughed. Ayan's ears burned. He wanted the earth to swallow him. He turned his face away, pretending not to see Rashid. But Rashid, with his simple heart, waved cheerfully. "Beta, Ayan," he called. Instead of running toward him, Ayan walked slowly, his head hung low. When he reached his father, he hissed in a whisper, "Baba, why do you come like this? Everyone laughs at me because of you. Can't you at least wear proper clothes?" Rashid's smile faltered. He looked down at his own worn shirt and dusty trousers. His throat tightened, but he forced a gentle reply, "Beta, these clothes may be dirty, but every stain is from my hard work, for you. So you can study, so you don't have to live the way I do." But the boy's eyes were full of embarrassment, not gratitude. That night, Ayan refused to talk to his father at dinner. Rashid ate silently, staring at his calloused hands, wondering if love alone could ever be enough for a child who dreamed of more. Scene 2. The growing distance. As years passed, the gap between father and son grew wider. Ayan entered high school, and then college. He became sharper, more ambitious, and more ashamed of his background. He avoided introducing Rashid to his friends, and whenever his father appeared at his school, he felt humiliated. Rashid noticed. Every time his son pulled away, a quiet ache grew inside him. But instead of complaining, he worked harder, staying longer at the workshop to save money for Ayan's future. At night, when the village slept, Rashid would sit under the dim light of a lantern, looking at his son's childhood photos, whispering prayers for his success. Years rolled by. Ayan's dreams took him to the city. With a scholarship and hard work, he entered university, studying business and finance. Rashid, with pride swelling in his chest, sent him off with a small suitcase and teary eyes. "Remember, Beta, no matter where you go, this home is always yours." Ayan nodded, but inside, he was determined never to return. The city offered him escape, from his father's grease-stained image, from the village laughter, from the shadows of his past. Scene 3. The silent sacrifice. Back in the village, Rashid's life became lonelier. The workshop still buzzed with old motorcycles, but the evenings were empty. He cooked simple meals for one, often leaving Ayan's favorite dish untouched at the table, as if waiting for him. Every month, Rashid sent money from his modest earnings to support Ayan's city life. He sold his wife's jewelry, his old belongings, and even borrowed from neighbors, just so his son would never feel deprived among rich classmates. But Ayan never called. When he did, it was brief and hurried. "Baba, I'm busy. I have assignments. I'll talk later." Sometimes weeks passed without a single word. Rashid never complained. 4 years passed. Ayan graduated with honors and soon found a respectable job in the city. He bought polished suits, a small apartment, and surrounded himself with friends who belonged to the modern, urban world. In this glittering new life, there was no space for Rashid's simplicity. One evening, as Ayan celebrated his first job promotion with colleagues at a restaurant, Rashid arrived quietly at the city bus stand. He had traveled overnight on a rickety bus just to see his son. His clothes were the same, plain and patched, his hands rough with years of labor. He carried a small tiffin box of homemade food, wrapped in a cloth, hoping to surprise Ayan. When he finally reached Ayan's apartment, he rang the bell with nervous excitement. Ayan opened the door, surprised, and almost annoyed. "Baba, why didn't you call before coming?" he asked sharply. Rashid's eyes softened. "I wanted to see you, Beta. I brought the biryani you used to love. Made it last night." But Ayan glanced behind him at his friends laughing inside the apartment. He felt a sudden panic. "Baba, this isn't a good time. My colleagues are here. They won't understand. Please, you should go back tomorrow." Rashid's smile froze. He stood silently for a moment, then nodded. "Of course, Beta, I don't want to disturb you." He placed the tiffin box on the table and stepped back. That night, while Ayan laughed with his friends, Rashid sat alone at the bus station bench, hugging his thin shawl against the cold breeze, waiting for dawn so he could return to the village. Scene 5. The letter. Months turned into years again. Rashid's health began to fail, his back bent, his eyesight blurred, and his hands trembled. Yet he continued to work, refusing to burden his son with complaints. One winter evening, coughing badly, he sat by the lantern and wrote a letter in shaky handwriting. "My dearest Ayan, if ever I embarrassed you, forgive me. I only wanted the best for you. Every drop of sweat, every sleepless night was for your future. I pray for you 5 times a day. If life gives me nothing else, it has given me you, and that is enough. Your loving Baba." He folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small wooden box where he kept his wife's photo and Ayan's childhood drawings. Then he closed his tired eyes, not knowing it would be the last night of his life. Scene 6. The news. The next morning, a neighbor called Ayan. "Beta, I am sorry, your father has passed away." The words hit him like thunder. For a moment, the city lights, the sound of traffic, the noise of his colleagues, all went silent. He dropped his phone and sat frozen. For the first time in years, tears rolled down his face. He remembered his father's rough hands waving at the school gate, the tiffin box of biryani, the patient smile whenever he had pushed him away. Guilt tore him apart. Ayan rushed back to the village, but it was too late. The funeral was over. Only the fresh soil of the grave remained, still damp, with white flowers resting on top. Ayan fell to his knees, pressing his forehead against the earth. "Baba, forgive me. I never gave you the respect you deserved. I thought the world would laugh at me because of you, but the truth is, I was never worthy of you." His cries echoed through the silent graveyard. Scene 7. The discovery. That night, Ayan entered the small, broken house he had once called home. Everything smelled of his father, oil, smoke, and old wood. He found the wooden box on the shelf, opened it, and saw the letter. As he read the trembling words, his chest heaved with sobs. He realized that while he had been ashamed of his father, Rashid had never once felt shame for him. Only love, only sacrifice. He found old receipts, every penny Rashid had saved for his education, even debts he had taken from neighbors, just to keep Ayan's dreams alive. He saw the worn-out shawl his father used in winters, patched again and again instead of buying a new one. Ayan clutched these items to his chest, crying until dawn. Scene 8. The redemption. In the days that followed, Ayan made a promise at his father's grave. "I will live the way you taught me, Baba, not with pride in wealth, but with pride in honesty." He returned to the city, but his heart had changed. He donated a part of his salary to poor mechanics and workers, remembering his father's struggles. He began to speak about his father proudly, telling friends and colleagues about the man who had raised him with sweat and sacrifice. Every year on his father's death anniversary, he visited the village, cleaned the grave, and read the letter again, reminding himself never to forget. The final message. One evening, standing by the grave with tears in his eyes, Ayan whispered. "Baba, I know you're not here to hear me, but I'll say it anyway. You were not my shame. You were my pride, my hero, my everything. If only I had realized sooner. Forgive your foolish son. The wind blew gently through the trees, as if carrying the message to the heavens. And though Rashid was gone, his love lived forever in his son's heart. The end. He simply listened to the dial tone after every short call, kissed the phone, and prayed for his son's success.